question I get asked a lot is about my raised beds. And I think a lot of people make it more complicated than it is. So today we're going to take the mystery out of raised bed gardening.
Why do we have raised beds?
Because you wanted them. I wanted row crops because I knew I was going to be the one that did the work, so I thought it would be easier for me. But somebody likes things very symmetrical and has some tendencies towards perfectionistic, OCD-ness, perfection. That sentence didn't work at all. But someone has tendencies towards some OCD, and raised beds satisfied a deep longing for symmetry. We settled on the raised beds, and some people think that, oh, that's the only way to garden. It's not. There's so many different ways to garden. We have raised beds. I thoroughly enjoy them. You can make raised beds out of anything. You can do wood, you can do stone.
Gummy bears?
Not gummy bears. You can do tin.
Not anything.
Yeah, and concrete. You can make them as expensive as you want. You can make them as cheap as you want. You could even do raised beds, and you could do straw bales around it and then put dirt in the middle of it. You could do whatever you want. It really doesn't matter. If we chose wood, and I'm going to talk about something just a little controversial, and that is treated versus untreated wood. We chose to go with I'm sorry, I take that back. We did do untreated wood for our first bed, and we lined it with plastic like they said to do at the store. But the first bed we did was
That's
treated.
Why we did the plastic.
But you said that it was untreated.
Nope. Putting words in my mouth.
Well, anyways, we chose to go with treated. We chose to go with treated wood. And people are going to go, well, they don't necessarily make treated wood the way, they don't use the chemicals that they used to use in treated wood anymore. The arsenic that was in it is not in there anymore. And those are things, the way that they used to do treated wood is the way you do not want.
It was no bueno.
Yeah.
That's Spanish.
Yes, it is. He took Spanish in high school, and that's about all he knows.
See.
So we did choose to go with cedar. We did choose to go with treated pine, so it would last longer. Cedar was way too expensive. We all know that he loves cedar, but cedar was way too expensive for what we wanted to do. So we chose treated pine, and we are good with that decision. I don't feel bad about that. I researched that before I went and did it. People will question you and think that you're crazy. That's fine. If you're uncomfortable with it, then don't do it. Do untreated. But you will know that you're going to have to rebuild your beds after a year or two, because it's just going to fall apart. I wanted something that would stay if we're going to do it, so we don't have to keep redoing it. The tin option was not an option for us, and stone was way too expensive. So for us, this was the most affordable option, so that way we could do the raised beds and then make them last.
We went with 6 by 12 foot raised beds. The reasoning behind that is because at the lumber, at the price that it currently was when we were purchasing our beds, and the dirt, we could do a 6 foot wide by 12 foot long by 10 foot high. Excuse me, 10 foot high. That'd be huge. 10 inches high.
Massive carrots.
Massive.
Woo!
Yeah, it'd be huge. We did a 10-inch tall bed, and at that size, 6 foot by 12 foot by 10 inches, it was the absolute cheapest than any other sizes of beds.
Yeah.
And with at the time, because I didn't have many tools then, it was what we were able to cut on our own.
Yeah.
And so we did that, and then we bought 4x4s to secure them in the corners to screw them in.
Yeah. So we do the 6 by 12 beds, and it's not the recommended size. The recommended size is actually a 4 by 8, and that's what I would still recommend.
Why?
It's really hard to ignore you. So the 6 by 12 bed, thank you, is what I would not recommend it. My husband and I, this is where I would need you actually in the shot. See? In one of our videos, my kids said that I looked really short, and I'm not at all. I'm like just shy of 6 foot, and he's 6'2", and then when he has his boots on, he's probably 6'3", 6'4".
Stilettos.
So for us, we are both very tall, and so a 6 by 12 bed is not hard for us to reach into the middle of.
We want to be able to fit comfortably.
So a 6 by 12 bed is easy for us to reach into the middle. Another way, if you do want to go with a bed this size, one of the things that I really enjoyed that I did last year is and I planted on either side of the bed, but right down the middle, I planted cut flowers. In this area, zinnias grow really well, and so I planted a bunch of them in between there. You can get a pollinator blend, so you can attract pollinators to this area, and you can also plant herbs in the middle of it, which is one of the things I did too. I planted some cinnamon basil. It's probably my most favorite basil. And then you can also get a beneficial insect mix that you can plant down the center of them. So if you did want to go with something this large, then there are ways that you can do this and still make this pretty. So there's no reason that flowers and vegetables can't mix.
This is a 6 foot wide, 12 feet long, 10 inches high. And all we did for the corners is we did a 4x4 post, and I used 3.5-inch screws, and I screwed them in multiple times to the post just to square them up. And then we have 4 feet between beds.
People will go and just buy soil or just topsoil or dirt or whatever and fill up their beds. It's not very wise to do that. Even a garden mix is not wise to do because it's really devoid of nutrients, and you need life, you need nutrients in your soil.
So we throw the solicitors that come by in the beds.
We don't. What I'm going to recommend to keep it simple for everybody is you get a mixture of garden soil and you get a mixture of compost, and just mix it in. Do 50-50, and it's going to provide you with a really good base to start with. We have a local place here that we could get compost and garden mix delivered to us, or we could go pick it up if we wanted to. These beds, we all picked up the dirt and shoveled it in. This year, for the other side of our yard, we had it delivered to us, and it was a lot of work. But it's a mixture of garden soil and compost. Keep it simple, and then you can add to as you want to. We put a layer of cardboard and newspaper on the bottom, and then we wetted it down really good so it wouldn't go anywhere, and then we layered our garden soil and our compost on top. It's just the best way to go. It's the easiest and it's the least complicated. You get more complicated as you go along if you want to, but if you're wanting to just get started and you want it to be simple, do the bed, put a layer of newspaper or cardboard down, and a mix of garden soil and compost, a 50-50 mix of garden soil and compost, and it's a really good place to start.
Now, one thing I want to add is we have Bermuda grass here in West Tennessee. And Bermuda grass, in case you're not familiar with it, is a crawling grass. So it does not have straight shoots that just come up. It crawls and it moves. So it's very good at crawling under raised beds and coming up. So we found that with the cardboard, it seems to be, and if we can cover the equally with the cardboard, we're able to prevent most of the grass from coming up.
We still get it. We still get
grass, but
and you pull it up.
You get weeds and you pull, and but it's not.
Yeah, it's not horrible. We have tilled soil. We have cut sod and flipped it. We have, what else have we done?
We have cut sod and removed it.
We have cut sod and removed it. And those methods, if you want to do them, more power to you, but they did not work for us at all, especially with the grass that we have. So the raised beds really work well for us, and there was no removing of grass involved whatsoever. If you have at least 3 to 6 inches of dirt or compost on top of grass, you're going to prevent the majority of it, and by the majority of it, probably all of it, from ever coming to the surface. Every year we're just trying to add more growing space, and one of the ways to do that, instead of building more beds, we decided to do trellises. They're simple. They are just from cattle panels from the local feed supply store. With the arches, we're able to grow a lot more and add a lot more food into the beds. This year we're growing pole beans on arches. We're growing butternut squash, cucumbers, birdhouse gourds, and there's something else, and I can't remember what it is. So, but we're gonna utilize that space going up and over.
So as you see here, we have installed our hoops for our raised beds. What we've done is gotten the 16-foot cattle panels that are 50 inches wide, and I have put them into the dirt inside the beds. And then I got 6-foot T-post, and I hammered them down. These are about 4.5 feet above the bed height. And with that, we've just got a couple clamps holding these on, which is your regular T-post fencing clamps. And we have those held on, and then I just got a couple wood staples, and I put those in on either side just to help secure it. Because we do have a lot of kids and such coming through here, we wanted to make sure that if they did climb on them, that they would be safe to climb on. I have not tested it myself, but I believe I can make it at least halfway, 3/4 of the way up before it comes over. But it was actually pretty easy. It was a 2-person job to have one end in and trying to bend the other. Other than that, it was the most economy-wise way.
Economical.
There we go. This was the most economical way we could find to add trellises to our garden, and something that would look good and last.
And like I said earlier, we're both really tall people, so as you can see, we have plenty of headspace. That was one of the things that I was worried about, that as food was growing down, and we probably will, we'll probably still actually like hit the food, but it's gonna be really fun, because on this one, in particular, I have purple pole beans that are growing on either side. So it's gonna be really fun in summertime to come through and just pick.
How's that sound go, Glenn? She picks on a horseback, in case you were wondering.
One of the advantages to having raised beds is that we live in an area where the soil's very much clay. I think a lot of people do, because a lot of gardeners that I follow or homesteaders that I follow on YouTube all say the same thing. So I'm thinking the majority of the country is mostly clay. I do know when they build subdivisions that a lot of the builders will come in and rip out the topsoil and take it elsewhere, so you're kind of left with barren ground. But one of the advantages of having the raised beds is that you can come in and bring your soil, so you're not trying to plant directly into clay.
When we went to do our first raised bed, the big box store suggested that we do not put our garden soil up against the treated wood, that was a no-no in gardening, and that I had to go and buy their most expensive cedar that they had available. They said, however, if you did want to buy our cheap wood, we recommend you getting the 3M plastic and doing that around the interior to keep a divider between the wood and the soil. And we have found, and we did that on the first bed. It's just a bunch of extra cost and literally a waste of time. It does absolutely nothing. If anything, that I wish
think there's more chemicals in the plastic, in all honesty. I don't know for sure. I could be totally wrong, but I feel like there's more things that you could potentially have leach into your soil with the plastic than you would with the treated pine.
I have these are probably going to last us 6 to 8 years in the ground before they start really rotting, and we have to look at replacing them. But at the cost of the raised bed, I think we were in it for something like a total of $160 per 6 by 12 foot bed, and that was including the screws, the lumber, and the soil. So which is not bad.
And you can do it cheaper by going smaller. I mean, it's not, you don't have to go the size. At the time, this was the most economical and made the most sense for us.
Yep.
Also, the perk to raised beds, living in a suburban neighborhood, is one day we don't want to live here. I don't know if that will ever happen, but one day we would like to have land. And so we would probably garden differently on land. But the good thing about the raised beds is we can remove them. They're screwed in, and that would be one tip that I would definitely say. It's a lot easier to remove screws than it is to remove nails. So if you're going to build a raised bed, screw it in, don't nail it in. And I know your mind's going crazy, isn't it?
Somebody's mind's in the gutter.
It's because I'm married to you. So we can dismantle the beds easily if we ever put our house up for sale. Especially if a lot of this could be overwhelming to somebody that does not want to do this at all. So if we just dismantle some of the beds, it's really easy to do that. It's a lot easier to unscrew it than it is to remove nails from the beds.
One of the advantages with using the screws to build our beds is that if we did find that land, we can easily unscrew these beds and take them with us. The wood's still good. We can level the dirt out here, or we could take the dirt with us. We would more than likely level it out, because
it'd just make more sense.
Yeah, level out, put sod on it. But that's an advantage. I mean, everything that I've done with screws, because I'm able to remove it as things change, as ideas change. We're able to adjust fire. Ideally, we would want a little taller beds, because that would be more of a deterrent for chickens and other livestock to keep out of. And dogs.
They're probably the worst.
Yeah.
Hopping into the beds.
Our dogs definitely are. These are the only beds we allow them in, so they get it where they can take it.
No, but yeah, ideally, like, we probably would have higher beds other than 10 inches. But 10 inches works for us. We can have more beds by going lower instead of going 20 inches high or whatever, because the cost of the material is more. So you're going to double your cost, because you've got to fill the bed and you've got to build the bed. So for us to have it lower allows us more bed space and more room to grow things than we would if we had it up higher. As he has said, we have 4 feet in between our beds. And the reason being,
So we can jump from bed to bed.
the reason being is when you're mowing, it's easy to get through. But at this, I mean, other than that, I mean, it allows for adequate space. The wheelbarrow can get through here. More than one person can get through here. We have several kids, and we have a lot of kids that hang out at our house, so more than one person can fit through here comfortably. Any yard equipment that we need to have back here can fit in this bed. Any more space, I think, would be too much space.
It would
I
be.
really think that 4 feet is a really good distance between beds, regardless of the size of your beds.
Yes. One thing I would like to add, our 6 beds here did not get put in all at once.
No.
We started with 1 raised bed. The next year we actually wanted to add more beds, but for cost-wise, we made it the bed an L shape. So it was 12 feet long by 6 feet wide to make an L. We were trying to add on to that afterwards and realized that if we did ideally want to end up with the 6 beds we were looking at, we would need to change it back to a rectangular bed. And so we did, and pretty much each year we've added a bed or 2, just simply because of the costs. Ideally, we would love to have had the yard the way it is today.
5 years ago?
Yeah, at the first year.
But it's probably smart to not start out big. It's probably, if you do not have any gardening experience, then I would start out with 1 bed and plant just a couple of different things. Do not overwhelm yourself, because you'll get overwhelmed, and just learn about those things and then add a little bit more every year.
Exactly. Well, it's getting dark. You got anything else for them?
No.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Sugar Milk Back Here Farmers. Thanks.
Stop, you've already done this. You can't pull the same jokes all the time.
I just came up on the elevator. What's the issue?
Chickens are gonna be really loud. You've already done that one too.
Hola. ¿Cómo estás? That's Spanish. ¿Qué pasa?
Stop talking Spanish.
Hey, so I'm here on one of the beds.
You don't have to say hey, because we've already ended.
Hi. Okay. So, no.
Just talk. Without a soak, okay. What's up?
As?
Sure.
Sure. Sure.
Just
As you can see.
so yeah, so just screw in the beds. Don't
Don't do it on the couch, not the counters, just in the beds, guys.
Sorry. Oh dear. Sorry, Mom.
Can't take her anywhere.
So, if you're going to build raised beds, use screws and don't use.
Sarah, how do we have 4 children?
I don't know.